I have provided a checklist for you for your lesson plan for the day you are observed. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that you include these things normally in your lesson plans, but the day you're observed, you kind of have to make sure there's enough balance of everything so they can kind of give you credit for having all the positive components of a lesson. Like I mentioned earlier, you do want to have a technology component. You're also going to want to show that you have thought out some type of collaborative work as well as independent work, because they want to see that the students will work for you as an individual and in groups or partners. And you want to make sure you've thought through how you're going to get the expectations across to your students on how you want them to be working for that type of work. You also want to have some type of lecture. You want to show that you can engage the students that way and plan for the transitions that you're going to have between each type of activity. You will want to plan out some questions that you plan on asking the students that show higher level thinking skills, and be ready to accept questions from the students as well. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to think through your objectives and use those to talk about what your goal is for the day and the relevancy the work will have to the real world. You want to build in the relationship to the real world to get their attention. You want to have some type of way to get their participation on an equal basis. You don't want just the smartest child in the room answering all the questions. I like to say, okay, who has tennis shoes on today? If it's maybe a summer day and I know that half of the people will have sandals. That way I can say, okay, I want to hear what you got for this answer, what your perspective was. And you can call on just those people. That way it's random, and then you can think of another random way to call on them for the next question. That way you can make sure that everyone is participating on an equal basis. Have some type of way to check for understanding. It doesn't have to be an actual formative assessment or formal assessment or quiz. It just needs to be, it could be just quick questioning or something they have written down. But you do want to make sure that they're understanding what they're learning. And then give them positive feedback and encouragement for mastering the concepts. That is key. They're going to be looking to see that you have the relationships with your students. So make sure they hear you saying positive things to them. At the beginning of the lesson, review their prior knowledge. Activate what they know about the topic. That way they'll be ready to learn whatever new thing you're going to be teaching them. Make sure your activity has some type of problem-solving angle or critical thinking angle. That way they see those higher level thinking skills are occurring in your classroom. And have some type of learner-centered activity or self-directed activity where the students are able to kind of work on their own while you monitor them around the room. The first year I was observed, I came up with this great lesson plan. It was kind of like an experiment, so they needed help with every step of the way. But I actually got marked down for that because it wasn't very self-directed. They kind of needed me to hold their hand through each step. So make sure they have an activity that you can give directions on, and then they can kind of work on it on their own, and you can walk around to help them for it. And finally, don't forget to give them the procedural directions, especially on this day when you're being observed. You want them to see that there is order to your classroom.